Now this is something I've been waiting for quite some time. This is something called a Vivosmart HR Plus, and I'm going to give you a quick review of it here compared to a Fitbit Charge HR, and we'll do the pluses and the minuses and just a quick look for you so you can maybe make your mind up and see the differences between the two things. This is a purple one I borrowed from my daughter, the Fitbit Charge HR, by the way. This is a blue. They come in different colors. The Vivosmarts, this blue color, it comes in black. This blue's got a very dark blue strap. It comes in a purple, which is more like the darker purple here with a dark strap. And there you are. Now, in terms of fundamental differences, first of all, if you look at the two devices, they're not that dissimilar in terms of size. As I say, the colorings are slightly different. Fairly much the same. If you look on the underside, you've both got that raised area where you've got the heart rate monitor, connections, etc., etc. Differences straight off the bat. One is touchscreen. Yep, so you can move it up and down like that. It has got a button there, which is a start-stop button for your exercises, much like you've got a button there for start-stop for recording exercises. And the other is, of course, that this one's fully waterproof. So the Vivosmart is fully waterproof. The Fitbit Charge HR is kind of splash-proof. You wouldn't want to submerge it for long at all. And the other fundamental difference is that this one on the left, the Vivosmart HR Plus, has a GPS device built into it. So it'll track your runs, which is, if you've ever done that, is very good for usage. So those are the fundamental differences between the two. Then, of course, there is the price. Now, depending on where you go in the UK, you can pay twice as much for the Vivosmart because it's just been released. But again, if GPS is something you really want, then that's something you might be willing to pay for. Now let's get under the hood just a little bit, because you might think that the Vivosmart wipes the floor with the Fitbit, and that's not necessarily the case, and I'll tell you why. First of all, just to make you aware, there are various versions of this model here. So there is a Vivosmart HR, which they've recently released, and the difference between that and the HR Plus is the GPS software. So if you want the GPS software, this is definitely the one to go for. Pluses and minuses, what this also does is receive smartphone notifications. Now this one, the Fitbit Charge HR, doesn't receive smartphone notifications, but it will buzz if your smartphone is ringing. So you can set it up to give you a buzz if you're smart. It only gives you one buzz, which is a bit limiting. This will give you much more than one buzz. This will also give you notifications whenever you get emails or anything else like that if you want. You can't really alter it much. You can turn them on or you can turn them off. The other thing to notice that's affected me in the difference is in terms of alarms. The Fitbit Charge HR has multiple alarms. I've not found out quite how many, but I've set 6 or 7 in mine so far and it's been fine. Whereas the Vivosmart just has one alarm. And you can make it a daily alarm if you want, but it's just got one alarm feature and that's it. You can't do much about that. In terms of accessibility and the light, of course the Fitbit Charge HR only comes on either when you tap it, depending on how you've configured it. I'm not sure how she's configured this, or when you press the button. Whereas opposed to this one, is always kind of on in a backlit display. You can't really see the light there. In terms of broad daylights, if I really get the light shining on the screen, neither of them are that useful, as you can see there. But actually, both are perfectly readable in most situations as far as I can tell. They both do the usual stuff, the sleep tracking, the steps, the climbing stairs, all that sort of stuff. As I say, the difference between this one is it will track your run if you set it to do that with GPS. Also, in terms of broadcasting your heart rate, the Vivosmart will broadcast it. So if you've got another device, it's pretty niche, I think, which wants to receive your heart rate as well. Maybe you've got one of Garmin's cameras. It'll broadcast your heart rate to that if that's the sort of thing you want. But then there's a fundamental difference for me, and I'll tell you it's the reason why I'm not happy with it and the reason why I'm so disappointed, and I was going to keep it, but I'm not going to keep it. And that's the heart rate monitor on the back there. can you tell what the fundamental difference is? I mean, there's a physical difference, first of all, in that the Garmin has 3 lights, which is pretty good, as opposed to the Fitbit's 2, and that's supposed to make it much more accurate. But the other fundamental difference for me is the fact that the Fitbit Charge HR, when you're wearing it, will constantly monitor your heart rate, whereas the Vivosmart decides if you're asleep or if you're inactive, it'll turn itself off for elongated periods. Now, for me, I don't want that, because it assumes, oh, well, your heart rate's going to stay about the same, I won't bother wasting my battery, I'll just leave it be. I don't like that. I wanted something which was going to, the thing I really loved about the Fitbits was that they would constantly measure your heart rate. This doesn't do that. It kind of says, well, you're resting, you're asleep, I'm going to power down and just flick on every now and then, just as a little check. I wanted, to notice things like arrhythmia, which is sometimes when your heart rate just changes for no apparent reason. I spotted that once with my Fitbit. I'd been sat at my desk and I noticed that my heart rate had gone up to 120 for about a quarter of an hour. That's quite interesting. If it happens once every now and then, you don't need to worry about it. I'm not a doctor, well, I am, but I'm not a medical doctor. You don't need to worry about it if it happens every now and then. Apparently so. But I wanted to monitor that if it happened again. It hasn't happened again according to the Fitbit. But of course, you wouldn't really know, because if this turns off when you're inactive and you just sat there, you wouldn't know if it spiked for 10 minutes here or there, because you could easily miss that. So that's a big flaw for me. I do like the strap. It's you can get a really good fit on this. Not tight, but not floppy, because the strap it's a lovely consistency. I really, really like that. So there we are. Those are the 2 things. There is that difference in price. There is that difference in display. So this is always on. This has got a touch screen, of course. Up and down you go, notifications, other bits and bobs. Touch screen can be a bit hit and miss when you're exercising, because of course you get very, very sweaty. So again, depends how much you're going to use it for exercising. I've compared it to the Garmin's Fenix or Fenix 3 HR. Significant difference, obviously, in terms of size of display. Significant difference in terms of what the watches do, of course. This has got an awful lot more features. In terms of running, okay, I'll give you the running rundown. I'm kind of more of a runner than anything else. This, of course, is multi-sport. Will measure all sorts of things, which I don't necessarily use. And this is more geared towards perhaps just running as your key sport activity or some kind of aerobic exercise. You can set alerts with this. So, for example, I get it to bleep every 5 minutes while I'm running to remind me to take a drink, for example. And you can set up the alternative. You can only have 1 alert at a time. And you can configure the screens to demonstrate a few different things. It's got a bit of configuration option in terms of time, in terms of pace, etc., etc. So that's quite good. Nowhere near, of course, as many options as this one here, which is set up for something completely different. And it does also have an automatic lap counter, which is either every mile or every kilometre, depending on what you've chosen. Which again is, I don't think you can turn that off. So that's just, if that's okay with you, that's okay with you. And then your start stop, of course, is that button there. Although it does have a feature which is good at detecting walking and detecting other sorts of activities. And I found that to be okay, pretty good at detecting when I've gone for a walk, pretty good at detecting when I've just started running. But for accuracy, if you're timing your 5K, for example, you'd want to do a start and a stop. So yes, it's a very cut down version of this, but then it's a very cut down price compared to that. So you'd expect it to be quite different. You can't configure the watch face much. You can make it horizontal instead of vertical if you want, so it appears that way. I think I was hoping to love this, and I kind of do, apart from that heart rate monitor business down here, and I just wish there was an option for you to keep that on. I get there'd be a battery hit. Fitbit manages to live. That's okay. I know it hasn't got a GPS and a Fitbit, but I do wish they would give you an option to leave that on, and then this would be, for me, an absolutely marvellous device. It isn't, if you don't, I don't see too well. It isn't as easy to see, obviously, as this with the much bigger displays. Whoop, I've got a notification there. Order's been dispatched. That's another video for you to watch in a while, I might add, which is going to be very exciting. But in terms of its functionality, I like it. I like it a lot. I think they've done a really good job. Can't help being a bit grumpy about the heart rate thing. The other thing I would nark about is in the description, in terms of additional features, it says ANT or ANT plus compatible. Now, what that means, ANT plus, is a way of chest straps and things communicating with each other. So, for example, on this watch here, I have a chest strap, and the idea of the chest strap is it means you can gather more metrics and more accurate heart rate data about your runs, etc. ANT compatible from this point of view is only one way, but it doesn't state it's only one way, i.e. this will transmit ANT, as I mentioned, to another device, but it won't receive. So you can't connect a chest strap to this. This is it. This is, you've got what you've got. If you want advanced running metrics in terms of oscillation, all sorts of things like that, this isn't going to do that for you. But if you're an ordinary runner, you just want to record your runs, if the Fitbit doesn't quite give you what you need, in the fact that you don't want to take your phone with you to map your runs, etc., this is going to be a big step up. Look around for the pricing. I think Handtech do it for about 150, 155. Amazon vary around that kind of mark. I imagine the prices might come down a little bit because it is quite new. But I do like it. I like it very much. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments down below. Am I going to stick to it? Well, I don't think it's my cup of tea, simply because, as I said, the heart rate stuff. I'm still in the market for something which will give me constant heart rate monitoring throughout the day. If you know of anything that will do that for me, and the GPS, I don't want to wear a string of devices on my arm, then perhaps you could let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, then please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see lots of other interesting reviews like this, then subscribe. If you don't like it, then let me know in the comments why, please, so I can improve it later on. Apart from that, there we go. That's your choice. It's a very nice bit of kit. I would recommend it with the obvious caveats, and that's the Vivosmart HR Plus. Just thought I'd finish off here by showing you the backlight brightness in the device. You can see that it's not that bright compared to the Fenix 3, but maybe you don't need it that bright, so that's okay.